And we believe that the SDG Impact Standard is a great bulwark against the increasing amount of greenwashing that has affected the impact investing industry as we move from a nascent industry towards becoming mainstream, with all of the big players, the big asset managers, the private banks, and so on, institutional investors getting on board with impact investing, setting up their own funds. So it's really important, uh, which makes the SDG Impact Standard even more important moving forward, and will have more value both for the companies but also for your future investors. Um, yeah, so with that, I would like to thank you for your attention today. If you have any questions, we'll be very happy to answer the questions that you might have. And I can see we have more people who came. So I hope that most of you heard most of the introduction. But should you have any questions, we have 10 minutes for Q&A. Feel free to ask any questions that might help persuade you, hopefully, to join one of our future in-person, or at sometimes we also organize in-person trainings. But I think, of course, uh, the framework works better when we actually have an opportunity to be in the same room, where we can have breakouts and between the different participants attending the training.
Hello,
Yeah, Olivia, go ahead.
Christian. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I have a question concerning the trainings. I'm really interested in what you have just shared, and I wanted to know more about maybe the timelines and the procedure for even joining the trainings and how that works out for those that are interested.
Yeah. There are different ways. For AP Group, we also do a lot of consultancy. At the moment, for example, I'm doing a big consultancy for the European Commission on the Global Gateway, which has allowed me to travel for several times to 5 Central African countries. And so when I go on these consultancy missions, if time permits, I will extend my stay in the country so that I, for example, can do a 2 days in-person training in that particular country where I so happen to be. The same thing, for example, earlier this year, we had the Zambia Impact Investing Summit. It didn't work out this time, but the idea was actually that the United Nations Development Program would invite me to come and do a 2 day training leading up to the summit for some of the companies that had been shortlisted by United Nations and some of the other organizers of the Impact Summit to pitch at that event, to really get them fully on board with the SDG Impact Standards. As you remember, there were two work streams. There was the SDG investor maps, which works closely with the SDG Impact Standards. What we are doing on our side, as you can see with the event taking place the 19th of December, is that we organize our own e-pitching events, which we call the SDG, the Impact Lions Den. But that approach is kind of aligned with what the UNDP is doing on their side. And we are also in a position to help the UNDP uh, source companies that can be uploaded. You remember the slide I showed you with the investment opportunity areas. So
Mm-hmm.
once you reach a certain scale, your companies, since you have already, I would say most of you, or if you have been certified, that will give you a great chance to have your solutions uploaded on the UNDP's database, DST investor maps, which are being widely used by investors around the world who are thinking about, for example, investing in Uganda or investing in Kenya or investing in Zimbabwe. So that should be an added incentive to get that certification, so you can get your solution out to more potential investors.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, maybe while you're thinking about another question. So I think most of you, as I can see the names, you have been invited to participate at our e-pitching event on Thursday, the 19th of December at 5 o'clock Central European Time. My colleague Yang Su, who's with us, he will follow up with you tomorrow. We will need some information in order to put together a pitch book, which will be shared with the 70 plus impact investors in our database that we are working with within the Impact Alliance then. But in order to incentivize the impact investors to actually show up, and we need 3 of them to be there. So there will be 3 to 5 investors in the room. So in order to incentivize them to be there, they need, of course, to have a minimum amount of information. So we'll need to know what are the deal amount that you're looking for, what is your ask, what type of investment are you looking for? Are you looking for private debt? Are you looking for private equity, convertible bonds, uh, other types of financial instruments? What is the valuation of your company? And then most importantly, we need a one-page teaser, and ideally also if you have an image or a photo of your product or your solution, so that we can compile all of that into our pitch book. The pitch book will be shared with the investors early next week, so that we have enough lead time leading up to the e-pitching session to make sure that we actually have investors in a room that has an interest in at least in one of the 7 or maximum 8 solutions that will be pitching for those investors. So we only have maximum 8 slots. So we have invited a bit more. So we also have someone to choose from. To be perfectly honest, one of our selection criteria is also the ask, because we know from the investor side that they are looking, because of the transaction costs associated with doing due diligence for companies that are uh, not at the concept stage, but has leads been deploying for, let's say, for to give the investors enough reassurance about in which direction the company is going, in addition to, of course, having understanding of what your solution is all about and the scalability. So please do provide my colleague Mr. Su about with this information, ideally by end of business tomorrow, so that we can put together the pitch book and share with all of the investors next week, so you will have a greater chance of pitching in front of investors on the 19th of December. Okay, do you have any questions about the SDG Impact Standards, the training itself, or the event on the 19th of December? If you don't have any questions now, feel free to reach out to Mr. Su by email. He's was on CC on all of the emails that you received the last few days by either myself or my colleague, Mr. Peterson. Um, don't, if you don't have any questions right now. Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a little bit what I alluded to before. So as I said, you will have an opportunity to pitch no- at our series called Impact Alliance then, which takes place every 2 months. In addition to that, in between those online sessions, we have, and in addition to the 70, what we call impact lines, we also have a database, as you saw during my presentation, covering all of the impact fund managers or asset managers investing in Africa. So we also compile a second pitch book, which includes all of the companies that has been pitching at our impact lines session, or what we used to call the Impact Investor Circle e-pitching session, which has been running for the last almost 4 years. So these 70, almost 80 companies are compiling our pitch book, and we share that with all of the investors that we have in our database. So even for those of you who might not get a chance to pitch on the 19th of December, there will be another opportunity 2 months later on. Plus, if If your solution and the three criteria, as I mentioned before, is aligned with what we are looking for, then we'll include you in the database and we'll put you in the pitch book and we'll share that with the investors that we have in the database. And in addition to that, as I mentioned, for those of you who get an opportunity to be certified by attending the SDG Impact Standards training, the 2-day training, that certification normally should qualify you to also have an opportunity to have your solutions on the UNDP's uh, investor investor maps, online investor maps, which, as I mentioned, are being used by investors across the world to look for investment opportunities. Any other questions? Last burning question before we close. Okay. If that is not the case, I would like to thank you all for having participated today. I hope that,
Um,
yeah, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Sorry. I wanted to ask the pitching. Will it be paid? Are we going to pay for it, or you guys will take care of the payment, like to attend the pitching?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Paul. Good question. As I said, it's an
Yes.
online, so it's not like going to an investment conference where you sometimes have to pay in order to
Okay.
get a chance to pitch. So it's free of charge. As I said,
Okay.
the only condition at this stage, it might change in the future, but the only condition at this stage is that you attend the SCT Impact Standards introduction. So having attended today's introduction, you are already eligible and qualified to be pitching at either on the 19th or future events if you're not ready to pitch. You will receive instruction as to how the actual pitching takes place, what we would like you to put forward in terms of the canvas. You will have only 3 minutes to pitch, and there will be 5 minutes of Q&A where the 5 investors will have opportunity to ask one round of question. That investor that might have an interest in your solution will then get a second round to ask an additional follow-up question. So that's how it works. There will be 7, maximum 8 founders pitching. Each founder has 3 minutes, after which the 5 investors have an opportunity to ask one question, and then there will be a follow up. You do not have to stay throughout the 1 hour. The e pitching event takes 1 hour. After you have finished pitching, you're welcome to leave the meeting, but you're also welcome to stay on to listen to the other ones. You can always learn a lot by listening to how other founders come across and how they sell themselves. So that is really up to yourself how busy you are on the 19th of December. I hope I asked your question, Mr. Kamara.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Okay.